All right, so we're going to be talking today about 4.2. It's going to include both sleep deprivation as well as dream theory. So we're going to go through both of those. It's a decent amount of content, so we're going to move a little bit quickly, so try to keep up. And remember, you can always go back and rewind, watch again. So starting with sleep deprivation, we talked a little bit about this last class, but big idea, it's not good. Get more sleep. So why do we sleep? Why do we need sleep? A couple reasons. One, evolutionary. We've talked about this one. Protection, right? If you were asleep at night, you had a higher chance of survival, of not getting eaten by a bear or a saber-toothed tiger or falling in a hole that you couldn't see. So sleep at night. It's safer. It's also good physically for recuperation. It's repairing our brain tissue in those stages of like being a toddler or a teenager, even later. We're pruning and getting rid of our unused neural connections, right? Our memories are able to be stored, but it's also getting rid of those things. Right, when we are asleep, our brain is also like rehearsing things. We're literally like going over the stuff that we did that day. Several studies have shown this. One with like rats, they put them in a maze and tracked their neural firing patterns, and then let the rats sleep, and they continue to track their neural firing patterns, and they showed that the rats had similar neural firing patterns as they did as when they were going through the maze if they hadn't solved it yet. So if they were still struggling with that problem while they were sleeping, they were still continuously, unconsciously, right, while they were asleep, working on solving that problem. So sleep is vitally important because not just is it like better for us physically, we're also literally working on solving problems that we're struggling with in our sleep. Same thing worked out for humans. They had people work on extremely complex mazes, and they had one group continue to work over like 5 hours. They had another group take a like hour and a half nap right in the middle of that, and they found that the group that worked for an hour, took an hour and a half nap, woke up and then ended up surpassing the group that continued to work the whole time, right? 6 hours straight versus 3.5 hours of work and an hour and a half of napping. That group did better, even with less work, because while they were asleep, their brain was able to come up with things without them thinking about it. Crazy. And that's that kind of like creativity part, right? It inspires us in ways with kind of without our inhibitions, without our kind of our having our own consciousness get in the way to some extent. And then, of course, physical sleep. Our pituitary gland releases those growth hormones during in room 3 and in room 4. We get those delta waves of deep sleep. Very good for sleep. Very good for our like physical recuperation, muscle growth, all that good stuff. So sleep deprivation, very bad. A couple of famous studies with Peter Tripp and Randy Gardner. We don't do this very much anymore, or really at all anymore, because of kind of the horrifying effects that we saw on these individuals. The Guinness Book of Records, World Records, used to have longest person to stay awake. Randy Gardner set that record, and then they removed it because they didn't want people to continue trying for this record. Stayed awake for 11 days. You heard that right, 11 straight days. And a couple different things that you need to know. We'll talk about this a little bit more in class. But what they found was that more or less within 2 weeks, they had pretty much fully recovered. But for 2 weeks, they went through this stage of what psychologists refer to as REM rebound. So after you sleep, after you like, if you pull an all-nighter or you go a couple days without sleep, the next couple nights you'll spend more time in REM. So meaning that our body is prioritizing mental health over physical health. It means you're going to be sore, you're going to ache, you're going to hurt for a couple days after you pull an all-nighter, because your body's going to spend time working on memory formation and pruning out stuff you don't need, which is what's happening during REM compared to time in stage 3 and 4, when those delta waves are releasing basically like recuperating our muscles and our joints. So both of these people stayed up for, I want to say Tripp stayed awake for like 8 or 9 days, and then Randy Gardner was 11 straight days. By the end of it, they were literally hallucinating. I think Peter Tripp, by the end of it, was literally seeing giant spiders walking around. He thought that the doctor that was working with him and had been working with him the entire time, by the like 7th day, he thought he was a Russian spy and wouldn't let him come near him. Like crazy levels of hallucination by the last day. And their brains were literally showing REM sleep. right? If you looked at their brains, their eyes were open, they were fully like conscious. You could talk to them, but their brain was operating the same way as if they were in the middle of REM sleep, meaning that the brain was like, screw this, I'm going to bed, right? I'm going to get some of the benefits of these REM waves. And the people were dreaming while awake. So literally they were hallucinating as if they were dreaming by the end of this. So get sleep. Don't stay up for 7 or 8 days. Very bad things happen, though both of them recovered fully. Right. And that's what's been for most people, that has been the case. But there are bad effects as well. Right. You're like almost 5 times more likely to have a stroke if you are significantly sleep deprived. So the lack of sleep itself doesn't have any horrible effects long term, but it can cause lots of other things that will. Right? More likely to have a heart attack, more likely to have a stroke, more likely to have accidents, like all kinds of terrible things that sleep itself doesn't cause, but it enables lots of other really bad things to happen. So when we are sleep deprived, the biggies are we have increased blood pressure because our heart is struggling to continue to like pump in the same manner. It's like all kinds of struggles there. Our stomach is consistently telling us we're hungry, right? So obesity is pretty decently correlated with sleep deprivation because our stomach is releasing things that tell us we're hungry because the body is just kind of confused. It's like, well, I guess we need more calories because we're sleep deprived. And so our body's telling us we're hungry when we actually don't need any more calories. Our immune system gets suppressed, so we're going to get sick more often. We increase fat cells. Preparing for sleep, when we're asleep, we're able to burn through some of those. Our joints ache because our body spends more time in REM sleep instead of stage 3 and 4. Our muscles don't recover. All kinds of stuff, right? We have struggles learning, paying attention, depression also correlated with it. So I haven't convinced you yet. Get more sleep. Make a plan. It's important. So serious health risks that I've talked about, like stress, right? While sleep itself isn't going to cause any like serious long-term ramifications, if you're consistently sleep deprived, right, and you don't really do anything about that, we will see increased stress levels, obesity, pretty strongly correlated with that. Hypertension or high blood pressure, your immunity drops, you're more likely to get things like the flu or COVID. It is a predictor for depression as well, right? Because of all of these things paired together. We also see decreased cognitive functioning and more likelihood for accidents. Like this simple little thing like this blew my mind. On the 2 different time changes, they studied the time changes, both spring forward and fall back. So when people got an hour less sleep, right, the amount of accidents tracked in the United States on average goes up by 300 on the first Monday after that. That's crazy to me, right? In the spring, whenever you're losing an hour of sleep, when the time is jumping, over 300 on average, over 300 more accidents happen on that Monday than do on any other Monday of the year because of the fact that people are getting 1 hour less of sleep. 1 hour less of sleep makes you that much more likely to have an accident. On the same vein, when you fall back, there are almost 400 less. It's different, I guess, a little bit less than 300. So just under 300 less accidents because of this. Crazy, crazy. So like, get more sleep. Get more sleep. So let's talk about sleep disorders a little bit. A couple that you should know. There's a lot of these, but the ones that you should really know are insomnia, the absolute inability to fall asleep. This is something that can be caused for a number of reasons. A lot of it is just bad sleep hygiene, but there are some genetic factors that go into this as well. But insomnia is the inability to sleep, whereas narcolepsy is consistently falling asleep, right? Like anytime you sit still, people are likely to fall asleep. Like it's not going to be like collapse while you're standing up. Very extreme versions that could be the case, but for most people, narcolepsy just means you very quickly fall asleep, often when you don't mean to. Night terrors, these are not nightmares. Nightmares happen in REM sleep. Night terrors, you don't remember night terrors. This happens in stage 3 and 4, so deep sleep. It's like sleepwalking. You don't remember that you were doing it, but you wake up feeling bad. You wake up feeling stressed. You wake up feeling like you didn't sleep very well because your body was moving and freaking out the whole time. And then sleep apnea is this like where we get these, or basically where we have these arrhythmias in our heart and we are unable to get enough oxygen. And oftentimes we even like stop breathing in the night for an extended period of time. So none of those are super good things, but these are things that you can like kind of help, right? Like sleep apnea often correlated with like obesity, but there are other things that can cause these as well. Insomnia, as I said, sleep hygiene is a biggie. So ways you can get better sleep. Some of the biggies are don't drink caffeine after noon, right? Even if you're tired. I strongly recommend staying away from this on days when I'm like, all right, I've got to get through seventh period. I'm going to have some coffee. Even though I was super tired that day, whenever 9 o'clock comes around and I crawl in bed, my eyes are wide awake and I can't sleep. All right. And I'm like, I was so tired earlier today. And I'll remember that I had caffeine at like 3:30 or 4. Right. It's never good for your sleep. It stays in your body. And like basically the half life is, it's going to go away. It takes like over 12 hours for caffeine to get out of your system. Right. It's fully most potent in that first 30 minutes, but it slowly fades out over time, but it's still there even if you don't notice it. I love the bedtime app on my phone. Every night at 8:45, I get my phone goes into dim mode and notifies me. It's like it's time to start winding down for bedtime, and it goes into more dark mode. I have to do more work to get into my phone than it did before, so that's helpful for me. Put your phone away around that time. I tend to then go and put my phone on the charger right when I get that notification. So at about 45 minutes, I'm able to like stay away from that. Stay away from caffeine, get a routine, really helpful, and find an environment that works for you, right? Something conducive. If it's light outside, right? Whenever Annie is on nights, she sleeps with a mask because darkness is really important for your circadian rhythm, right? If it's bright outside, unless you're totally exhausted, it's tough to fall asleep because your body won't release melatonin. You have to kind of trick it into releasing melatonin sometimes. And maybe most important, recognize it's important, right? You've got to see how important this is. So get some sleep. Okay, let's talk about dreams and dream theories. What is it? It is our brain firing in kind of the same way as if we're alive, recognizing different things that are going on around us. But it's usually less vivid, and we get lots of familiar details of the life that we live, of stuff that's around us. So REM, rapid eye movement dream, is these like hallucinatory imagery, oftentimes very bizarre. It's delusional. There's all kinds of weird stuff happening. Oftentimes it can be very normal, but sometimes it can be really, really crazy. Right. So it really is whatever it is that's going on for you at the time. I had a dream last night that I was in church and Joe Biden was there and he was talking to different priests, and all these priests, including the Pope, was there, and they were all telling him that he was good or that he was bad, and they were all telling him what to do. And he then was like, "Would you all shut up, man?" Like in the debate. Like I don't know why any of this was going on in my brain, but that was what I dreamed about. So they can be all over the place. It can be, again, like I said, a mix of the day's experiences. One of the people that was in the dream was somebody that I follow on Twitter, as well as Joe Biden, who's in the news all over the place right now. It was in a familiar church that I knew where it was. Like it's a mix of things that are going on. Our brain's creating a story. It's often difficult to remember unless you are woken up during REM. If you're woken up during REM, you will usually remember for a short amount of time. That's why I tell you to write it down right away, or otherwise you will forget. Um, in general, most adults have at least one negative emotion or thought in their dreams. Kids, on average, have very happy dreams. Right? Most kids don't really have nightmares. They have the very occasional nightmares, but adults usually have a mix of positive and negative. But typically, dreams are always have at least a little bit of negativity in each of them. And I think this is one of those like people oversell or overestimate the amount of like sexual or naughty dreams. For men, it's really only about like 1 in 10 dreams, and for women, they report about 1 in 30. And even these are self-report, so they could be blown out of proportion a little bit for either one of them. Fascinating piece there while thinking about, because I get this question every year for people who are blind. If you are born blind, they never have visual dreams. They do have dreams of different sensations, right? They'll dream about sounds. They'll dream about right, like sounds and feelings. But if you are born and then are born with like normal eyesight, and then you eventually go blind, you will still dream in full color. Your brain will continue to dream as if you with like full vision, even though during your life, during your day-to-day life, you don't have that. One other type of dreaming, lucid dreaming. This is a small percentage of people can do this, and there are ways to kind of train yourself into it by like thinking about it and really preparing. Like every night, like giving yourself the mantra. It's like, I'm gonna dream, I'm gonna control my dream. I'm gonna dream, I'm gonna control my dream. Ask yourself if you are in a dream while you're awake, just to kind of train yourself to do that. And lucid dreaming is that like thing when you're in a dream and you're able to control what's going on. Usually, you aren't totally in control. My lucid dreams, I can always, or I think about all these times where I'm like, oh, I'm dreaming right now. I'm going to try to fly. And I can never really fly. It's always like I jump up and I can almost fly, but I never can actually do that or something like that. You can't really control everything around you, but you kind of know you're dreaming. It's more of this in between stage. So we dream for a couple different reasons. It's one, helping us form new memories. It's also pruning out old things. REM state is where our brain is basically like exercising almost. It's creating and rehearsing and going through different puzzles and things that we worked on. It's healing and strengthening neural connections. It's helping us solve problems, and it's pruning out stuff that we don't need anymore. So memory formation is really important there. And then REM sleep drops over the course of our lives, which is also kind of falls in line with this, right? And when you're a child, you have a ton of stuff in REM sleep, right? Because you got to build neural connections. Infants are building neural connections like crazy. Old people, they don't need to build or prune neural connections as much. They need more focus on their bodies, right? So they're going to spend more time in stages 3 and 4. So we lose REM sleep over the course of our lives. Remember REM rebound when if we lose a lot of sleep, then REM rebound also helps us recover from sleep. So why do we dream? A couple key theories. We'll talk about 3 today. Freud was the first to really talk, or I guess go back to the Egyptians, and before that, probably were the first to talk about it. But the first psychologist to talk about Freud is wish fulfillment theory from Freud. This is kind of our recognition of our subconscious desires. He believed that dreams had both a manifest and a latent consciousness or latent content. So this is the difference between these is manifest is basically exactly what happened. If you write out the storyline of what happened, that's the manifest content. It's oftentimes symbols, it's places, it's people, but latent content, these are our unconscious desires and our wishes. So basically, this is the meaning. Manifest is what happened. This is the story, but latent content is what all those things actually means. And Freud, because he was a little crazy, believed this, like everything else, came back to repressed sexual desires. He believed that like anytime that there was sharp objects or something that could kill or a gun, that was like the manifest symbol. But he would tell people, it was like, well, technically that symbol, that is just a symbol for a penis in some way. He was very obsessed with sexual subconscious. Which is one of the many reasons why we don't listen to most of his theories anymore. We give him respect for starting the fields of personality psychology, but recognize that most of his stuff's a little off. So dreams, he thinks, were key to understanding our subconscious and what's the conflict we're going through at the time. But what we found now and what most psychologists agree with is that dreams don't really hide anything. There's not some subconscious meaning to what we're going through. And everybody can critique or interpret what's going on very differently, right? Like, who says that a gun's going to be a phallus when it could be, I don't know, it could be, even if it has latent meaning, why is that going to be the same for everyone? Hard to guess that or believe that. Another psychodynamic psychologist, Carl Jung, Jung is pronounced Jung. And he had this theory of the collective unconscious. This one's both a little more sane and also a little weirder than Freud's. So he was kind of a supporter of Freud, worked with him on a lot of different things. He believed that our psyche was made up of 3 parts: this personal conscious, personal unconscious, so that's kind of the like Freud, the conscious and the unconscious. But he also believed we had this collective unconscious. This is kind of like the way animals were born with instincts, the way birds can just know how to fly. He believed humans had something like that. there's this unconscious that we share with all other humans, made up of latent memories from our ancestors and our evolutionary past. And when we're dreaming, a lot of what we're doing is pulling things out of there. I believe that our personality is made up of these different archetypes, and we have these inborn things that are a lot of this is just really kind of just evolutionary psych, but this shared unconscious, without a whole lot of basis to it, is this belief that it's hiding, it's all of our past kind of inside us, and it comes out in our dreams. So our dream content, he, in studying dreams, found that a lot of people had similar dreams, even across cultures, across nations, across borders, like across time periods. Everybody reported dreams about teeth, or dreams about their spouse, or dreams about, whatever. And so he thought that clearly, because lots of people dreamed about the same thing, that there was this collective unconscious, and it couldn't just be that humans in general worry about the same stuff. So, finally, Hobson's activation synthesis theory. This is one that I think more people lean towards today, but there are those who fall into both the Freud and the Jung camp as well. Activation synthesis is that our brain is interpreting and creating random neural activity during our sleep in order to, these form memories, right? And it's kind of stretching and flexing. And the way that works out, those patterns that are happening there mean something, right? And the way that our dreams organize themselves and kind of the patterns of those dreams is very important in that activation synthesis theory as well. So that's it for the day. So sleep, it's important. Get more of it. If you're remembering your dreams, that's a good sign, right? That you're sleeping enough, unless you're in REM rebound. So get some sleep, figure out a way to improve your sleep hygiene, and track your dreams. That's it for the day. See you, fam.